So today we're talking about the cover stitch machine. It only does one thing. It's really, really expensive. Is it worth it? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Claire. So today I'm going to give you a 101 of my cover stitch. So we're going to talk about what it is, what it does. I'm going to show you how I thread it, and also I am going to talk about whether it's actually worth the money. So this retails at £550 or about $650, or at least it did when I bought it 3 years ago. But it only does one thing. It just top stitches. Let's get into it. The first thing to talk about is, what is it? So this is called a cover stitch machine. Its main purpose is to top stitch. So when you sew knits predominantly, you might do a double row of stitching on your hem, and that is what this is for. So instead of using your double needle on your sewing machine, you would use this machine. So sergers are everywhere. There's so many different models that you can get of sergers. See my 2 previous serger videos linked down below. With cover stitches, there's only a handful of models. It is getting better and better now, but there is only a handful of models. So in terms of stitching, this machine will do between 1 and 3 lines of stitching all in a row. 1 row is called a chain stitch, 2 rows is a double stitch, and 3 rows a triple stitch. Personally, I only really ever use the double stitch, but you can get different looks depending on what you're looking for. So the stitch is also stretchy, which makes it ideal for knit fabrics, and that's because of the looper on the back of the fabric. One thing that has come up in my correspondence with you guys quite a lot is, what is the difference between a serger and a cover stitch machine? So a serger, as we worked out in my previous videos, is a machine that will finish the edge of the fabric as you sew. With a serger, it has a blade and it trims off the excess. So a cover stitch machine doesn't do that at all. A cover stitch machine is just a top stitching machine. It doesn't have a blade and it only has 1 looper, as we will see in the demo a bit later. So that is the main difference. And you can't top stitch on a serger, and you can't finish the edges on a cover stitch. There is a way to conceal the edges of the fabric, which you will see later on. So let's talk about the different types of serger you can get. So this serger is a standalone serger. You can also get a combi machine. Some machines come as a serger and a cover stitch, and you just have to change some things on the machine to do one or the other, which is quite handy if you don't have a lot of space and you need a serger and a cover stitch. And the other type is an industrial cover stitch. I've never used an industrial cover stitch, but from what I hear, they're a lot more difficult to thread. This one is a beauty to thread, it really is. So they are the main 3 differences. So this model is the Janome Cover Pro 2000 CPX. So there's 2 models in this range. There's a 1000 CPX and 2000 CPX. There's a few differences which you can look up online, and I just went with this one. It just had some extra tension stuff that I really wanted. As mentioned, it does retail at £550 or about $650. So I'm just going to insert an overview of my machine so you can see it a little bit closer up. Over here we've got the differential feeds. One of them controls the tension of the foot, so how much the fabric stretches underneath the foot. So if your seams come out wavy, you would alter that. So the other dial is for determining how thick you want your stitches on the back. So here we've got space for 4 threads. The one on the left will be the looper thread, and that will be threaded down through here, which I will show you in a bit. And the other 3 are for the 3 needles that you can have here. So you've got 3 tension dials there. And that's for the left needle, the middle needle and the right needle. And the tension dial over here is for the looper. We've also got a tension dial here that's for, it says soft and tight. So I normally keep it on tight, but if I was getting some tunneling, I might put it on soft, and that would help ease the tunnelling. So we've got our dials, and you would need to play around with them to get your perfect tension. I've got mine on 0, 3.5 and 3.25. Thread your thread down here, over here and into the needle area. So I've got 2 needles in here at the moment, but you can have a third. I've got my little screw missing from the third, so I can't actually do a third right now. And this is the foot. It's not a clear foot. If you had a clear foot, that would be easier. It's also got a free arm, so take that off and then you can put your sleeves and your neck bands around there. So up here we've got a tension dial. I believe that is for the foot. It says it takes specific needles. I don't put those needles in. I use a ballpoint or a jersey needle, and that's absolutely fine. Let's have a look in here. So this is where we thread the looper. The looper comes down there, through here, threads into there and out there. So here we've got instructions on how to do different types of stitches, depending on what you're looking for. And it tells you the position of the needle. So what fabrics can you use with this machine? You can use pretty much most fabrics. It is designed for knit fabrics, and that is what I mainly use it for, so anything stretchy really. But I have been known to do top stitching on my woven dresses with this, and it works perfectly fine. One fabric that this would be particularly good for would be active wear. So if you were making your own exercise clothes, then this would be really good for that. In fact, I would probably definitely get one of these if that's what you sew. But any kind of cotton jersey, viscose jersey. Now, I did sew with viscose jersey before, and I had a lot of tunnelling. The fabric was not liking the machine, or the machine was not liking the fabric. I don't know which come first, chicken or the egg. It's for knit fabrics, but you can sew woven as well. And the threads that you can use is, I just use my overlocker threads on there, because you can put the big spools on here. But you could use your sewing machine threads as well. Some people do that, because depending on how many needles you're using, I use 2 needles, so I need 3 lots of thread. If you didn't have lots of reels of thread like I've got, then you could just wind a bobbin with your thread and put it on there. That would work equally as well. So at the start of the video, I mentioned that this replaces using the double needle on your sewing machine. So when you sew with your sewing machine, you can buy a double needle. You insert that in the shank and then you thread it twice and use it. When I personally used the double needle, I always had a lot of tunnelling on my fabric and I got frustrated with it, which is why I purchased this. Also, I just wanted a new machine. I was going through a stage where I just wanted all the sewing machines. I was excited by sewing at that stage. With this, you do get your double row or your triple row of stitches, but the back side looks different and it is stretchier. I believe it's stretchier on this than it is on a double needle, but do correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a long time since I've used a double needle. Now I'm going to show you how I thread it. Let's go over to that footage now. So let's thread this machine. I always will thread my looper first. Oh my god, it's just sort of hanging off here. I need to get it fixed. So for the meantime, that just sits there. So I have to be a little bit careful. Then you've got some holes on here and you thread that through. So we've got a little guide here that we will thread that through. Put it down through the dial. Once you pull it in that tension area here, you'll hear a little click. So you want all 3 of these to line up, and you do that by moving the wheel. And that is the looper threaded, so we can shut that now. Then we want to take the next thread. And we'll do the next one. So So the one that is most to the left, we're going to do first. We're going to push it over there, round there behind, then take the thread that's on the right and do the same. But we're going to pull it through the right side. And now what we need to do is thread the needle. That's how you thread it. So as you can see, this machine is much easier to thread than a serger. If you're intimidated by threading on a serger, then you've no need to be intimidated by this machine at all. It is absolutely fantastic. Takes a couple of minutes, only got one looper, so there's no confusion in this bottom end about what goes where and how to thread it. It's just very intuitive. Not only is threading this machine really intuitive, but sewing with it is super easy. I sewed this to show you how easy it is, so let's go over to that footage now. So now we're going to sew. So you're going to want to pin your fabric. When we've finished, you'll need something like that to move under the foot. A little pair of scissors will do as well. Just move under there. You'll see what I mean in a minute. I've got a bit of washi tape here, and that helps me to line up my edge every single time. So I would recommend you do that. That's just a bit of washi tape that I have had on my machine as long as I've been using it. I've pinned a bit of fabric. Ideally you would have ironed this. On the back, the edge of the hem is exposed, and so when we sew up, we're going to cover the edge of this. When we put this under the machine, we're not going to be able to see the edge, but we can feel it under there. You might be able to see it through the fabric, but you're not necessarily going to be able to see that on the machine. So you're just going to have to feel for it. We've got our markings on the machine. So I've got a little dashed line on my washi tape. So we'll be putting it up against there. We've got some notches here. The needles are at the two right notches. So you want the underneath of the fabric to go between those notches, tending towards the middle notch. So we're putting it under, we're lining it up with our washi tape, put the presser foot down and sew, but we're going to keep our finger on the hem there. So when you finish, lift your presser foot up, lift your needles up, grab something your scissors will do, and just bring them under the foot and bring your threads forward, give them a snip, pull it out, give the other thread a snip. So there's our finished stitching from the right side. Looks really good, nice and even. If we turn it over, you can see there the stitching covers the edge of the hem. In order to finish the edges so it doesn't unravel, you're either going to sew side seams over your stitching, or you'll be stitching in the round. You'll go all the way back round to the beginning, and then you will go over your stitching again. So let's go over the pros and the cons of this machine. So the first pro that I would say is that it's a less fussy machine than a serger or a sewing machine. Out of the three, it's probably the easiest to use machine. Basically, if something goes wrong with this machine, you're going to have one of three problems. You're either going to have some tunnelling, you're going to have some skipped stitches, or you are going to have some tension issues. And all three are really simple to fix. If you're getting tunnelling, you want to loosen the tension. If you are having tension issues, which is mainly a wavy hem, then you can change your differential feed on the side of the machine here. Just have a play around with it like I did to see what gives you the best results. I've got my differential feed at 4 and 0.2. They give me the best results. And if you're getting some skipped stitches, either your differential feed is not correct, or your tension's not correct, or you need different needles. This happened to me before and I ended up changing my needles for a larger needle. Another pro is that it gives you knee to hems, as I showed in my demo earlier. Really enables you to cover the edge of the hem on the inside, and that's going to give you a really neat finish. Because you're sewing 2 rows or 3 rows at a time, your top stitching is going to be a lot neater as well. Another pro is this is a fantastic time saver. It's a lot quicker to thread than a serger. It also sews quite speedily. Like if you're doing a hem on a sewing machine, you might have to fold it twice, top stitch it quite slowly to make sure you're getting your top stitching accurate. Once you've got a little bit of experience on this machine, you just can go for it. Go for it. So another pro is that unpicking is easier, certainly easier than a serger. Just get one thread and pull it and the whole thing will unravel. It is fantastic if you've done something wrong, and obviously there's no blade, so you're not cutting anything off in the process. And also, as I showed you, it covers the edge of the hem, and you can do a backwards decorative stitch. So that stitch that's on the back there, you could have that on the front and then have the lines on the back. So cons, there's only a few, but they are quite big ones. It is a very expensive machine for what it does. In my eyes anyway, you might think it's not expensive, but for me, £500 for a top stitching machine is really excessive, and if I was looking to buy one now I probably wouldn't, but I do have it and I've been making a lot more use of it lately, so that's really good. So yeah, it's expensive, it only does one job and it takes up extra space. I don't know about you, but I don't have space to have 4 machines out at any one time. So this, like my serger, this gets put away when it's not being used, because I don't use it with every project, so it does get put away. If you're really limited on space, you might consider a combi machine, which is the serger and the cover stitch in one. Also, another con is if you like your attachments on your sewing machine, this machine doesn't come with many attachments. So something I haven't got that would be really useful is a clear foot. So when you saw me sewing, you saw that I had to feel for the hem underneath the fabric in order to sew accurately. But if I had a clear foot on here, I would be able to see what I was doing under the foot. And I don't have one of those, and that is potentially something I will invest in. I think you can also get a binding foot for your cover stitch, but other than that, I don't really know what other attachments there are that you could buy. So if you're an attachment lover, because let's face it, attachments do make our life a lot easier, then this machine, this model certainly doesn't come with a ton of attachments. So let's get to the nitty gritty. Do I recommend this machine? Well, if you saw this video, which is my dumbest sewing purchases that I've ever made video, you will know that this was mentioned as probably the biggest, dumbest purchase I have ever made. Now that's a catchy title, and it makes people click. I don't think it's a dumb purchase as such, it's more just an excessive purchase. So in that video I said that it was not worth the money, and I do stand by that, I really do. But quite a few of you come back saying you absolutely love your cover stitch machine, and that's fair enough. We all get value in different things, don't we? So having used it, had it a few years, I would say if money is tight or it's a really considered purchase for you, don't necessarily really need one of these. It's certainly not an essential machine to do your home sewing with. If you've got the money and you sew a lot of knits and you get frustrated with your double needle on your sewing machine, then perhaps this is a good purchase for you. So ultimately it really depends what you want to use your machine for, whether you've got the money. Just know that it's not an essential machine, and everything you do here you can do on your sewing machine. So I hope I answered all your questions about the cover stitch machine and you found this video super useful. If you did, do share it out with other people you think may find it interesting. In the meantime, you can see this video here, which is my latest free patterns video, which launched a week ago. If you haven't seen that, there's some great new finds in there. Until next time, happy sewing. Bye for now.